Hello and welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Today we're talking about food because, as we know, food is going to be getting short. Maybe your food has already been adulterated by that muck they're sticking into cows these days. But never mind all that. We've seen the farmers out on the march. Recently I've noticed they've been down in Dover. I'm expecting them to arrive in Worthing, where I am, any moment. But a man who knows all about this is, of course, Mark, the bowler hat farmer. Let's bring him on. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Richard. Good to be back on the show. Thank you very much, young man. Hello, everybody else.
It's lovely to have you back on the show, Mark. Now, we've got some important news. You are launching something to help people because of these damn shortages that are likely to come and cause us grief.
Indeed. Well, I think this has been born, Richard, out of frustration because, like you, I'm very passionate about food and farming. And I've found that the detachment that has been brought on by the industry as a result of keeping us away from food and where it comes from is quite scary. So we are launching, well, we have now launched actually the website, which is foodfindershub.co.uk.
Let me just bring that up onto the screen so people can see what we're talking about. If I can find the video again, the website rather, here it is. It's a very lovely website, I have to say, nice and easy to use.
Excellent, isn't it? It's been put together by a personal friend of mine and a team, and this has come out as a result of, I say, my frustration and talking to him. And he said, you really need to build a website for this. And I said, well, I don't know anything about that. He said, leave that bit to me. And within 48 hours, this was up and running.
That is amazing. That's incredibly fast.
Thank God for AI.
Yeah. But we need to act quickly. That is the key thing at the moment, because we're seeing the weather is not being great for farmers. And if we don't act fast, we'll end up with people who will be looking around not knowing what to do.
Yeah, well, I think, Richard, what we've done with the site is this is to bring together the shorten the road effectively in between the field and the plate. Because obviously, we've got processors and we've got supermarkets and we've got manufacturers and all that in the middle of the food and the plate, and that needs to just be removed. It's as simple as that. What we need is food served from the farm to the customer. And what we're doing with this website is allowing, there's three major parts to this website. So one is that farmers and butchers, bakers, greengrocers, everybody, fishmongers, whoever can register themselves so people can find them. Two, people can join as ambassadors. So people like myself or like yourself, Richard, who are passionate about food and farming and want to spread the word that there is other alternatives out there to supermarkets. The biggest challenge we always find is people say, oh, I love the idea, but where do I shop? Right. So that's what this is about. This is about where to find the food that you actually want to eat. So where do you find the local butcher? Where do you find the local greengrocer in your area? Then the third part to this, so those ambassadors, let me just clarify on that. Those ambassadors are volunteers who are passionate about the food side, and they're going out promoting this to the food people, so to farmers and, greengrocers, wherever it might be. So they have already started on that. We've put downloads on the website, Richard, so for posters that they can print off and take to their local shops and say, get yourself registered on here. We've had about 40 shops and businesses register so far in 48 hours. But the exciting thing in this was had over 50 ambassadors sign up, and this was to last night. I don't know what it is today. Not got the figures yet. And we've had over 500 members of the public sign up in 48 hours. Now, that says to me, Richard, the public want this as a service. They want to know where the food's coming from, and they want to know where it's, how to get hold of it.
Mm. Absolutely. I mean, people are beginning to twig that the food that they get from the supermarkets, whilst it's easy and you can park and you can go in, you're being photographed, you're being scrutinized. The food is nutrient-free, vitamin deficient. It's not ideal. Yes, it's all coming in lovely little colourful boxes and things, and you stick it into the microwave. But is it actually doing you any good at the end of the day? And what you've just described there about having it from the farmers to the plate in the family situation, it's what we've done for centuries and centuries. It's only in the 20th century did we start this whole nonsense about going to processing plants and then adulterating the food and all of that. And we just need to go and say, yeah, great experiment, loved that, thank you, but no more.
Yeah,
let's go back
absolutely.
to what really works.
I think what's interesting, Richard, is I know that John from Dora's Dairies, who's a friend of yours personally, he signed up on the site. River Ford have signed up on the site. So we're starting to get the message out there, and some of the people I want to see on there, people who are producing a really good quality food, they're starting to realise what this is about. What I love the idea of, Richard, is if we've got enough people on this website that all want the same thing, that we can then go to and say, listen, let's have this conversation, guys. If you all want organic food, let's start telling farmers en masse that that's what we want.
Yeah.
Because if we've got 50,000 members and 50,000 members say, we're not going to support supermarkets unless all the food is, chemical free, then they're going to have to start listening. I mean, it's proven, Richard, with Arla in the last 48 hours on social media, they've had their business desecrated, all because of their ignorance and whether it was naivety or just belligerence, I don't know. But either way, they've upset a lot of people. The people have reacted to it. They've stopped buying the product. The only thing I feel sad for on this, Richard, is there's a lot of good quality British farmers that supply milk to Arla who are now not selling that milk as a direct result of Arla's actions, not their own.
Yes. But if we can get them out of those contracts with those sort of supermarkets, and then they start selling that directly. I mean, it may seem stupid, but we used to have the milkman coming round delivering the milk. Now, and he also delivered eggs and dairy, other products. It's not a million miles away of having something similar, or hubs like you've got with the edge of your farm, where people can get that quality product.
Yeah, it's interesting, Richard, you say about the dairies. I spoke with McQueen's Dairies yesterday, and the lady on the reception said that they'd been inundated with calls because they'd put out a statement saying they were never going to feed their animals this, BS. And as a result of that, their sales are going up. Well, I say good to the public who are using their feet in the right direction this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more people are, as we've just said, are waking up to that, to start thinking about actually what is this food that we're eating. Because, I mean, where I live, the ambulances are passing 10 a penny now. I mean, they really are. I mean, I'm on the route to the hospital, so we see it. And, I mean, only during 2020... and now, if I've seen the amount of ambulances that sort of are zipping past with their sirens blaring.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of that's brought on, not necessarily by certain things that might be injected into you, but the stuff you put into your mouth.
Absolutely.
Because if you're living a bad lifestyle and you just think, oh, it's fine, I'll go to the quick takeaway, and it's being fried in seed oils and bad things. And you're not getting the nutrients in, and we're not. People have made food not a priority. They've just taken it for granted, and yet it's the thing that keeps us alive.
Yeah, I think what's already coming out of the website, Richard, is that is what people want. That's the missing link in between the farmer and the consumer is the quality, and not saying that the farmer's not producing a good quality product. Yes, they're using a lot of glyphosates and a lot of nitrogen that a lot of people like myself and yourself don't want. And they've got to identify and run with that to change the way they farm. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in the forthcoming year anyway, because of change of legislation. But the thing what's really exciting me in all of this is if 500 people have joined in 48 hours to air their view, that says to me that, one, we've definitely got this right. But two, this says to me that there's a lot of unhappy people with how the food supply chain's working. And if the farmers at this point and the producers of a real good quality food step into that void now, like McQueen's have, and gone, look, we don't want to be part of that, they're going to gain a lot of customers and take a lot of that money away from the supermarkets. And that's the bit what excites me, Richard. I don't want to give them anything.
No. I mean, they've got a track record. That's the thing of racing to the bottom and of forcing farmers to produce at cost.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Sometimes and below cost. I mean, we remember that with the eggs last year. I think it was. in which the farmers were saying, I just cannot produce. You're selling them so cheaply and you won't pay the proper cost of production. And that's the other thing that people have got to realize, that actually good quality food, there is a cost to it.
Absolutely.
But that cost is also a saving, because you're not having to go to the GP and having all these prescriptions and little white pills, because you're not getting as ill. And I mean, I know they're poisoning the skies and poisoning the water and all of those things that we have to deal with. But if we can get the food right, we've got a huge defense against everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good point you make there, Richard, is, what is the true cost of food? Because, I've had quite a few people on my messages in the last few days when I've put up videos, and but I just can't afford to go to a farm shop, Mark. And I say, you can't afford not to. What people have got to understand is, Richard, that supermarkets are heavily subsidised within their businesses and how they run them, to where a farmer doesn't get any help to produce the food now like they used to with subsidies. And that was the idea, that it allowed farmers to grow cheap food, to be able to, allow the people to eat cheaply. Now that all those subsidies have been swapped to the supermarkets and snuck in things like, if the supermarkets have staff on 0-hour contracts and things like this, so they don't have to pay out all the money what they used to pay out. So it's allowed them to reduce costs, to boost profits. You look at, every little hurts, and you think to yourself, £6 billion, I think it was, they earned last year. You're not telling me that couldn't have been, those profits couldn't have been equally, distributed over the farmers and things. This is a damn disgrace, Richard, really.
The other thing about supermarkets versus the sort of farm shops or the smaller or the market stalls is people know the products. In the supermarkets, people don't know the product. They come in, they're in the glossy boxes. You've got a list of ingredients that you need to wear, big microscopic or magnifying glasses to be able to read what's in it and understand what's in it.
And need analogy to understand it.
And the thing about the farmers markets and stuff, you can say, well, where does this come from? What's the provenance? And how, where has it been in the fridge for 20 days? Or, all of that, which I think is very important that people know. And the supermarkets, again, have let the customers down by, it's just lovely colours and all of theirs. There's nobody to talk to. Nobody's allowed. I mean, I was sacked 20, 30, whenever it was, 40 years ago from Marks and Spencer's because I spent too much time talking to the customers when I was there sort of as a temp one time. They said, we'll have to let you go because you're too friendly. I said, well, what do you mean? We're not getting people through quick enough. And you just think, but isn't that the point, that you want the customers to want to come back? I mean, in the old days, and, we're both old enough to remember those times where you could go into a shop and you could say, can you tell me something about it? And we've seen people have been removed from the product. So they're not invested in it. They don't know anything in it. And you really need that information, especially now with so many people with all these allergies and things, to be able to know, can I buy that? And how would you cook that? And to, say, what you want is a lovely recipe. And if you add this and add that, you get more sales. You get customers wanting to come back. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about recipes, Richard. I put out on social media last night a video and said, things we could add to the website, let us know. And the biggest thing what came up was, could you add recipes? So
there you are.
I think, and I think the reason that's come up is because the people what are buying into the passion, what we're talking about with the website, they're people who want to cook a proper meal. They don't want to grab a pack of, whatever it might be, chicken nuggets and chips, whatever it might be, and a beep, 3 minutes later, ding. And they don't want that. They want to dish up something where they go, wow, that's a really nice, tasty meal. And I think that is what's coming out of this.
And that will be fantastic to see people get much more interested in the food. They get the raw ingredients, a nice bit of braising steak from the butcher or the family, and then from the farm, and they're looking at, well, what do I do with it? And you think, well, you could easily make a casserole, especially this time of year, and you just shove it all in a pot with a few bits and pieces, and you stick it in the oven, and it's delicious. It's not hard, and it's so much nicer. And then if you've got the family around you at the same time and you're talking about it and and you're exploring new recipes and ideas, it just makes eating wonderful again, instead of just something that is supposed to give you energy to get through the next day.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Everyone's in this snack mentality these days where they go in the petrol station, they come out. I was in the shop the other morning delivering veg, and I had to smile because there was a guy came in, he got 3 cans of Red Bull, 20 cigarettes, and 4 bars of chocolate. And that was going to keep him going through the day. And I thought, Jesus alive, no one in the country's in trouble.
And this is where they spend the money, and they say, well, but buying from a farm shop is so expensive. And yet
Absolutely.
people are spending so much money on rubbish
Yeah.
that it's not giving them the nutrients that actually, I mean, I know you say it, and I've heard you say it when we do the talks and stuff, you want 3 meals a day. Well, I only have 1 meal a day because when you're eating good food, you don't need, you might have, a few nuts or a little bit of toast or a slice of bacon in the morning or something, but you don't need 3 great big meals when you are putting into your body good quality food. And if you are putting in chocolates and sweets and all the other rubbish, then you're just never going to catch up.
No.
And what it's doing, you can't see on the long term basis. Whereas,
Absolutely.
so many people can get off a lot of pharmaceuticals once they're getting the thing, because the body heals itself. That's the other thing that people forget.
But you have to meet it halfway, Richard, don't you?
You do, yeah. And I absolutely agree. And it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing what you're doing, you probably do need 3 meals a day because you're humping potatoes and digging and all of that. But a lot of people who sit in offices are sitting there with a cheeky donut or something next to them, and they're not exerting the energy, but they're putting in the calories and not doing anything about it. And that's where good quality food is essential.
100%, 100%. It's interesting. I mean, I always say about 3 meals a day. I get up at 3 in the morning. I never eat until midday. I never eat before midday. So whatever I've eaten the night before will get me through until 12 the next day. I think I always talk about 3 meals a day because that's what most people's, understanding is.
It is a perception, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I certainly don't. I have, really probably 2 good meals a day. And like you say, if you get enough out of that food, that what your body actually needs. I mean, I'm fortunate, you've met my partner Gloria. She's a great cook. She cooks everything from scratch. We don't buy anything in packets like yourselves. So I think, Richard, from my side, what's coming out of this is as the people are registering and we're getting a lot, and I mean a lot of feedback. It's been really good because, sometimes you can go down a road of wanting to launch something like this, this website. And for me, I've had to then put together this week a team of people in the background that I can go to and say, right, what's your thoughts on this and what's your thoughts on this? Because I don't want this website heading down the wrong road. So
no.
What I want to do is put together, a kind of a backbone of some really forward-thinking people that can, think a little bit out of the box of what the site needs to achieve. Because what I don't want it to be is just a food hub. And I know that sounds silly after we've called it the Food Finders Hub, but this can be so much more, like we say with the menus and things like that, the recipes. Let's make this an absolute collection and a collective of people who all want the same thing and all who want to head in the same direction, not just a business directory. That's not what I want this to be about. I want this to be about something what we can all get together on, every one of us. And if we could get 50, 100,000 people who all want the same thing out of life, this is about people, Richard, from the consumer point of view that just want to put good quality food on the plate. They're the people who need to join. People who are passionate about food and want to tell other people about the website. That's the job for the ambassadors. That's a volunteer role. They can join. They can do that at their own leisure. And the big thing, get the farmers to understand that there's another way for them to get food to the consumer. Because, I think, unfortunately, Richard, over the years, they've, again, become complacent, like a lot of shoppers with it's got free parking. That's they just turn up and do all the work. But you're losing money.
Yes. And I mean, and farmers, as they've got bigger, sadly, they've become less in touch with the customer, and they only have like a handful of customers, the processing companies. They're not dealing with real people who say to them, is there any chance you could do some potatoes with those, this, that, and the other? Or could you do that? Or there's a demand for this. Or actually, these are really nice. You should do more of those. And I mean, farmers don't leave the farm very often because they're so busy on there growing the food. And that's where we need to get people to integrate with the farmers, to support them so they feel wanted and loved, because they don't feel loved by the main clients they have if they're
No,
supermarkets. They
no.
just this is a one-way street to hell. And so, we want to tell those farmers, we are behind you. You've got an amazing skill that you can produce food out of the ground that most people cannot do, especially in the significant number that they do it.
Yes.
But if they can get to be with the customer more frequently, and the customer can come in and say, do you know what, you're doing amazing. Everybody loves a bit of praise.
Absolutely, yeah. Praise does wonders for the sense of hearing, my grandmother used to tell me.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think with the ambassador role, I think that's really nice, because there are a few of these other sort of listings of where certain farm shops are and what have you. But of course, people go out of business, they change hands, they change direction, and you don't know. And these business listings don't really have the same impetus that you're putting into that. And with the ambassadors who are going out there sort of acting as salesmen for it, because they're just passionate, that is such a good thing. And with the recipes and other bits and pieces, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I had a beautiful email this morning get sent to me by one of the ambassadors. She had got the poster to start emailing out to farm shops locally, and she'd written a letter to go with it from her side as an ambassador, but as a consumer, saying why she was supporting the site. And that was lovely, and it's now going up on the site for all ambassadors to be able to use. And that hasn't come from me. That hasn't come from the team. That's come from a consumer of food who just wants to see some nice food put on a plate. Yeah. So that to me is where this needs to come from. I know, Richard, we always talk about grassroots, but there is no more grassroots than the consumer. Absolutely. And that's what I think Arla missed the trick this week with that. They've completely forgot who their customer is and what the customer wants.
Yes.
And I think that's where, with small, independent, sustainably grown, farms and food grown on local farms by local people for local people in the right time of year when it should be grown, then we can move forward. And then those people can say to the farmer, okay, you're going to make that transition from chemical-based growing to organic. Where can we get involved as consumers? And I think this is, again, a trick that farmers are missing out on. They have kept themselves to themselves because of how they're farmed, and they need to bring the public back into the farms, and they need to get ask the public for help.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think that grassroots is there, and I think we are seeing that turn. Yes. That no more are we just complacent and looking. I mean, food is being threatened, and we are seeing it being threatened for political reasons.
Yeah.
And I think people, once the politicians start mucking about, people start going, hang on a minute, you can muck about with your country and this, that, and the other, but don't muck about with my family and my food.
Yeah, well, I think it brings it very real, doesn't it, Richard? When you say to somebody that, oh, by the way, now the farmers are on strike, there might not be any food in the supermarkets next week. Suddenly people go, whoa, time to focus.
Yes.
I think that's kind of where this has probably struck a chord with people, because we've launched this exactly, and that wasn't planned, I have to say, we've launched this at the exact point the farmers went to London. The tractors have gone on the march around the ports. The Arla things come out. And Richard, I think we'd both agree, and I'm sure everyone else watching this will understand that this thing what's come out with Arla is a tip of the iceberg, and it's probably one of 1,000 things that will come out.
Absolutely, and it's good that it has come out now, because people can start to see how adulterated their food is, and just the idea of putting some chemical into your milk or through the cow and then into your milk, that is enough to put people off. And I sent that to John Cook, actually, as soon as I heard about it. And I said, I wonder if that is, that's going to affect the milk. And he said, well, of course it is. Yeah. Of course it is. Yeah. And, you don't give animals anything that is not going to come out in the product that you end up with, whether that's in the meat or the milk or whatever, the dairy. And nobody wants that. Who wants that?
No, it's interesting, Richard, because those things I've got on the farm that I refuse to register.
Yes.
Somebody bought one of them for Thanksgiving, and he messaged me and he said, "I've never ever tasted anything like it. What did you
Wow.
feed it on?" I said, "Oh, it's really nutritious stuff called grass."
Really? Grass fed. How fun is that? There's a great
I
book.
mean, imagine something so simple.
Yes,
But
well, this is
he was
it.
so
Grass fed.
excited.
I mean, you mentioned that there is a book, Grass Fed Nation, by
Yeah,
the guy who used to be he's a his name's gone out of my head. It's a brilliant book. I'm reading it now. It's
yeah,
an absolutely fantastic book, and that's where we should be going.
yeah,
Grass, meadow grasses, all the different, because that's what nature does.
yeah.
That's how things work, and you would never get. And so I suppose those things that you couldn't register, he gobbled them up, did he?
Absolutely, and thoroughly enjoyed it from what he said. He sent me a beautiful video of it coming out of the oven.
Well, yes, indeed. Well, fantastic. Well, there we are. That's what we want. More people who have got stuff. And why have the government got to know whether you've got ones or twos or threes, of certain things? I mean, okay, if
It's
you've got
about
a big,
control.
yeah, if you've got a big farm and stuff is going to supermarkets, you could understand things do need to
Absolutely,
be
absolutely.
traceable. But when it's just local farms doing it with local people, it's none of their bloody business, is it?
Well, I
You
think
know,
what's one of the big conversations that came out of YouTube last night for me, Richard, was people saying about food and can they buy shares on a farm of the animals. So, and I know this is something that some farmers do. And then legally, who owns the product? If and I think that's quite a novel idea that people buy their food up front. It's a bit like a veg box scheme. If you take a community supported agriculture, that's exactly what they do. You pay into it in advance, you help grow the food, and then you get given the veg at the back end of it. And that's
people.
exactly what I think where we should be going with the meat side.
Well, people used to do that. I
Yeah,
mean, people used to buy half a cow or a quarter of a cow,
yeah,
and they would give the farmer the money or pay up at the end. There's a lovely scene in the War of the Worlds. H.G. Wells writes about it in 1880, whenever it was. And during the story with the Martian invasion, the guy
yeah,
goes back to collect his half of the pig. I think he bought. So they were doing it. They were doing this, and that was just sort of every day, because it was expensive, and so they would save up over the year, and at Christmas or whenever they would get the meat cut up, or they would buy bits of meat throughout the year, but it would equate to whatever, half a cow or what a quarter of it is, and it helps the farmer as well. And
yeah.
and
I mean,
they're invested in it. So if it comes out rancid or horrible, and he says, "Hang on a minute, what have you been feeding? I'm not paying you."
one thing what did come out, I had an email, Richard, which almost brought me to tears from an Arla farmer who wrote to me yesterday to say, whilst you're, advocating boycott the products, just think about the farmers who are, because obviously there's only 15 farms have signed up for this and they're all Arla farms.
Right.
But there's hundreds of British farmers that supply product into Arla that are producing a good quality food or
Yes.
drink, as in milk. So for cheese and butter and yogurt and so forth. So, but they're now not going to sell that as a result. Now, one thing I would ask Richard, and I don't know if you thought about this, but playing devil's advocate here, we know the 2030 agenda is to remove food, especially meat. And one of the quickest ways to get people to stop buying meat is to tell them there's a problem with it. And that's what they've just done. They want us to stop having dairy, and they've just told us there's now an issue with the dairy effectively by what they're putting into it. Have they done this purely to stop us having meat and to smash the industry to a hole? And that's what this farmer raised with me, was the fact that she's obviously very awake, but she raised the point that, is this instigated as a way to destroy the industry? And that's bloody scary.
I think that could well be part of it. But however, it does, if it wakes the farmers up to say, look, I can't trust where this food goes unless I provide it straight to the customer, and I can look the customer in the eye and say, this is grass-fed, whatever, however it's produced. And we don't use these chemicals. We've said no because we can see the effect of it. We don't do that. We're not doing high intensity farming so that you get crap meat.
Yeah.
We're not going to inject them with too much. We're going to follow the nature's way. We're going to, however it is.
Yeah.
And if they can look the customer in the eye and the customer says, do you know what, Ray, whatever the farmer's called, I trust you.
Yeah.
That's something that is a private relationship with the customer and the farmer, and that's where we need to get back, because it muddies the water when you get processing plants, because you've
Yes.
no idea what goes into it. Then the supermarket, no idea what the deal is, and how it's being sold and how it's stored and everything else. And we, as you said right at the beginning, we've got to get the relationship between farmer and customer, and there really needs to be nobody in between.
Yeah,
and
100%.
if people love their food and love producing food, then it's an absolute passion and a joy.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. It's interesting. I was looking at a bag of flour the other day, which my mum had, and she said to me, "There's something on the back of this what worries me." And I said, "What's that?" She said, "Look at the wording on the back of here of the content." Now, flour, my assumption was, is ground wheat. Now, maybe I'm being naive, but there was a substance in it called organic. And what was it called? Organic ingredients. And when I looked into it, it's ground sawdust.
Oh my God.
And that's what they're adding to the flour to make it go further. It's like, Jesus, what have we been fed, Richard? This just begs belief.
Absolutely. And it's time to stop the adulteration of food.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to get people to understand there is another way. There is options out there. And what we've got to do is bring it all together under one roof and make sure that gap in between the farmer and the food on the people's plate is removed. And let's get that as tight as we can and get the farmers talking to people, get the people talking to the farmer, and get that food on the plate where it's got proper taste, proper goodness, and that the money's gone in the farmer's pocket. So he's not scratching about trying to earn a basic income. Some of these farmers, Richard, are not even covering their costs, and that's just no way. No. And that we know that's been deliberately done. I say take it all away from the supermarkets and put it back in the hands of the people.
And just finally, before we wrap it up, it's absolutely essential to keep the agricultural land doing just that for agriculture. Don't give farmers the excuse in order to survive, they have to take in solar panels and wind farms and all the other stuff. There's plenty of other places you could put your solar panels down on the hard shoulder or the central reservation on motorways. And that's a place where you could put industry, but not on prime farmland.
No.
Farmers are custodians of the land. They want to be the custodian. They want to look after it and pass it on better than it was. That's my understanding, mostly of farmers. And they in the interim, they want to grow food for people and see people well satisfied. And I think what you're doing there with the hub is a big part of reuniting the farmer and the customer. So more power to you.
Thank you.
The link, just give us the address of it one more time.
Yeah, it's foodfindershub.co.uk.
I'll put the link in the description, of course. So do go there, and whether you're a member of the public and would like to purchase and be all that, or if you are a producer or someone or you want to be an ambassador, do check it out. We're going to push this really hard because we are in difficult times. So let's do something about it. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Richard, as always, an absolute pleasure and an honour, sir.
And we will talk again soon. And no doubt next year we'll have some more talks and be running around the country promoting this left, right and centre.
Well, it's interesting, Richard. I've had several people come forward who've saying, when is the tour starting?
There we go. That's what we want.
So I think we might have to get a tour bus.
Yes, brilliant. There we go. Well, until next time, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to Mark, the Bowl Hat Farmer, and I'll put his YouTube channel there so you can keep an eye exactly what he does on a daily basis, which is grand. And in the meantime, I'll be back with more interviews and more wonderful monologues, etc. Till then, from Mark and I, thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.